You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to the Hired Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell, Community Engagement Lead at Pathify. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Hired Geek Podcast is a proud member of the Enrollify Podcast Network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow every day. Explore all of our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back, everyone, to another wonderful episode of the Hired Geek Podcast. I am joined by two guests, which is always a treat to kind of get two perspectives on the topic for today, which is AI curriculum, sort of like how is this sort of showing up in the classroom, particularly at American University and their School of Business, Kogod, which I do have kind of a personal and professional connection to. My first job ever in ed tech was at 2U, which I know they're kind of grabbing headlines for not the best reasons right now, but it was my first kind of foray into this wider world. I worked supporting the Kogod MBA, online MBA students in that role as a coach. And so there's always kind of a special place in my heart for Kogod and what you all are doing. It just was a super fun experience and cool to kind of check in and see what you all are doing with your AI curriculum, and how you're kind of engaging your business students with this new technology. So we'll start as we always do, introductions and brief overview of your professional backgrounds. We'll start with you, Angela, and then go to David.
Thanks for having us. My name's Angela Virtu. I am a Professorial Lecturer in the Information Technology and Analytics Department at Kogod School of Business at American University. And I'm also the AI Instructional Faculty Fellow, which we can dive into what that all means a little bit later. And then before I joined AU, I actually spent about 10 years in industry working at a whole bunch of different tech startups. And I was the tech nerd guru who would be building all of these AI and machine learning recommendation algorithms and systems for these companies to get that tangible impact and value.
And I'm David Marchick. I'm the Dean of the Business School here. My job is to support people like Angela, Professor Virtu. I have a background in business, government, and law, and was in the Clinton administration and the Biden administration, worked at the Carlyle Group for many years as a senior executive, and was a lawyer and taught at Dartmouth for many years. And now I'm the dean here for 2 years.
Awesome. Well, I guess it's a brief follow-up to both of you, since you have such diverse backgrounds and different backgrounds in industry and everything. What brought you to doing AI stuff at AU at this time? Angela, we'll go to you, and then David, what's sort of the story of what brought you to the role that you have now?
So for me personally, what brought me back to AU is I'm actually a double eagle. So I actually got my undergrad and my grad degree both at American University. And then when COVID hit, I ended up adjuncting for the university. And I was kind of splitting my time a little bit, where during the day, I would do all of the super cool, fun, techie things. And then at night, I would hop online and I would start lecturing to a bunch of grad kids on the predictive analytics and the machine learning space. And I just got a lot of joy out of that. And then about a year ago, the opportunity presented itself for me to kind of join the faculty full time, where I would be able to just really teach at a different scale that I was able to do while I was an adjunct. And that kind of is what brought me in, really.
Angela also played field hockey Division I.
I did.
And well, I think you won championships here at AU too, didn't you?
We won one in 2016, my junior year. Yeah.
Very impressive.
And I've lived in DC for 30 years, and I basically had a lot of luck in the private sector, and I kind of retired and didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I started teaching at Dartmouth, and I did a couple of other projects, and then AU approached me, and I thought it would be kind of interesting and fun for this next chapter of my life to do something that probably I'm not really qualified to do. And that makes it interesting and fun because I'm learning on the job.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's like something for you, David, that comes up to me is like that idea of like if you work in administrations, I know that's just sort of like kind of the nature of DC is like it is just naturally kind of transitory. Like it's like, well, they're only going to be there for one term or two if you're part of like, someone's cabinet or whatever else. And then like, I know that like a lot of folks like it is an idea of whether, maybe they've given their whole career to education or not. Like they sometimes do want to like double down on like, well, I'm at a point where like I've gotten a lot of different experience. I'd love to be able to like give back in a way of like working in education or, and some people maybe it might be like a nonprofit or something, but it's just like with all that being said, we're here kind of focusing in on the AI curriculum at Kogod. So I'll leave it to both of you where it kind of makes the most sense to start in sense of like how it developed. Obviously, it's just been on a lot of folks' minds, like across the entire world, I guess, but certainly in higher education of like how do we grapple with this of like how students use it for completing assignments, but also how do we like teach about it and integrate it into curriculum and all those sort of things. So feel free to kind of take it as you will. I'd love to hear from both of you, but start wherever it makes sense about like how this curriculum developed.
Right. Well, maybe I'll start and then Angela can finish because she actually knows what she's doing much more than I do. So last year, I would say AI was not even on our agenda for our curriculum. I actually just completed my goals for the year and I went through what my goals were for the last academic year and, figuring out what I did well and where I fell short. And AI wasn't on my list. But what happened is we had two speakers at AU. One was the president of Google. Another was a CEO of a venture capital firm who invests in AI. The president of Google said that AI is as profound as fire and electricity. And I thought, all right, maybe a little bit of hyperbole, but if he's 0.001% true, fire and electricity are pretty profound. Okay, so it's big. Then when we had the CEO of a venture capital firm speak, a student who was a sophomore in our entrepreneurship program raised his hand and said, is AI going to replace me? And the CEO of the venture capital firm said, AI won't replace you, but someone who knows AI could replace you if you don't know AI. And a kind of light bulb went off in my head. And I said, we need to start teaching AI throughout our curriculum, not just from a kind of tech geek perspective, like Angela, who's a programmer or someone you would think of as at MIT writing code, but someone who is a marketer or a finance expert or an accountant. They need to learn AI at AU so that when they go to apply for a job, they have AI on their resume. It's an essential skill, much like reading, writing, Excel, accounting is an essential skill for a business student. And since I know so little about AI, I went to some experts like Angela to say, all right, we got to do something. What do we do? And I'll turn it over to Angela and she can tell you what we did.
Thanks. Yeah. So one of the big questions that we got from all of our faculty when we made this really big statement of like, all right, we're in on AI, let's put this in the curriculum, let's move, was like, well, what do we do? Like, how do we do this? What even is AI? So one of the first big things that I kind of took charge of was just training all of our faculty and staff. And so we had a bunch of events in the spring and throughout the summer to build the community, to build the knowledge base within our own faculty. That way they felt comfortable with the technology. They might not be 100% experts, but they have the really good foundations that they would need to then pass on to all of our students when they have it integrated into their curriculum. And the key differentiation of what really, really helped us was we went to industry. We went to some of our alums. We went to some folks out in the DC area, and we brought these companies in to teach our faculty how AI has already been incorporated into their functional areas. And one of the key standouts was one of our alums who's 26 years old, who is with a financial investment firm. And she came in and gave an entire demonstration of how they're using AI to do everything she did as a first year analyst. And all of our finance professors, like their jaws were on the floor because they're like, this is crazy. This is insane. This is super powerful. And it was in that moment where we all recognized like the way we need to teach and the way we need to prepare our students is going to be changing, because the expectations from all of our employers is starting to shift.
So we then went through our curriculum and incorporated AI throughout our curriculum. So students that went through orientation 3 weeks ago, they had AI modules in orientation. They will have it in their first year class. They will have it throughout their core curriculum, in undergrad, grad, and then there are a bunch of electives they can take. So we have more than 20 classes now that incorporate AI into it in our business curriculum. And we did that in a matter of 6-ish weeks last spring, once there was consensus to go. And I'm really proud of our faculty and our staff for moving with such speed. I would say academia is not known for moving with speed. And here we did.
Yeah, I mean, that is really impressive. And it reminds me, I think, of like totally different circumstances, but like with the pandemic and that idea of like we had to like train people to understand how to do it and then like really just kind of fully embrace it. And I think this moment, I feel like certainly every organization can kind of go at their own speed, but I think that tacit acknowledgement of like kind of that sentiment that I feel like has really been kind of becoming pretty pervasive, and I think is kind of the right take, is that like, you know, while AI may not replace all jobs, it will replace the person who doesn't know how to harness it and all that. Like, and I think it is an idea that like I hope all other kind of functional areas and disciplines are having these similar conversations around, just sort of like, you know, that idea, like for someone like myself as like a content creator, is like it can be a great catalyst to start writing your sort of inspiration, or sort of like, you know, to check, like get statistics or something, you know, get facts and figures and different things, like, but it shouldn't be doing all of the writing for you. And even that idea of like, okay, if you're dealing with like sensitive financial information, like it shouldn't be absolutely just going completely automated. It's like, but it should be doing the work that you can check quickly, and then you're done in a fraction of the time. So on that point, you know, sort of expanding on kind of what you're saying, if you want to give any other kind of examples of like this curriculum being relevant to like both technology focused students and more general business students, because I think it is that idea of like imagining a day of the life and how, you know, any number of tasks could be like automated or supplemented and all these things. But like, I know I'm imagining just sort of like that idea of like communication. Obviously, everybody is communicating with other people, no matter what you're doing as a professional. So, like, is it like things like that? I guess is like how you're seeing like AI or things kind of coming up of how it's sort of like filtering into all the sort of learning outcomes of all the different courses and programs and things.
Well, let's take something that you do every day, Dustin, with your great podcast, which is market. You know, there are a million podcasts, and you have to market your podcasts as a differentiated product so that you have listeners and your listenership grows. So you are developing marketing materials, you're developing text and persuasive arguments or advertisements or communications to get people to listen. And all of those tools now can be made better using AI. So for example, in the training session we had for our faculty that Angela organized, we had one of the top marketers in the country come, a fellow named Ira Rubinstein, who's been head of marketing for PBS, Marvel, and Sony. And he discussed an example of how he was creating a poster, a flyer for a Ken Burns Buffalo film that he was advertising for PBS. And he has something like 50 graphic designers and marketers and the people that would you normally think of to do an advertising campaign. And instead, he went to a AI image creation tool and wrote in, give me an image of a buffalo with a Native American theme that looks like a Ken Burns poster. And in 30 seconds, it popped something up. He printed it out, gave it to his marketing person, and said, do something like this. Instead of 200 hours of 5 different concepts and debate and discussion and refining, and it was done in a few hours. And then he went on to say, when you go to the PBS website, like you go to Netflix, and Netflix suggests, okay, well, like my kids, they have probably watched The Wedding Crashers 50 times. So Netflix suggests other Wedding Crasher like goofy films for them. That's AI. And so he is using AI to design marketing tools to get people to watch shows that they would like. We're teaching those type of tools in our marketing curriculum. And 2 years ago, we weren't. 1 year ago, we weren't. In finance, Angela mentioned this, amazing, talented young person who works for a Wall Street firm. She showed how to underwrite an investment using AI. And she did a task in front of our faculty that would have taken, say, 6 weeks to do. And she did it in 3 minutes. And we're teaching that in class now. I'll give you one other example. In negotiations, we have a negotiations class. That's an essential skill that anybody needs to learn. I'll give you an example of an assignment in our negotiation class. Use ChatGPT to negotiate with you, and here's your assignment. You want to ask your boss for more responsibility and a raise. What are your arguments? Have ChatGPT negotiate against you, and then have it evaluate the strength of your arguments. Okay. And then add a twist. Make AI be a jerk. We've all had jerky bosses. We have all had to learn how to deal with them. Some we do better than others, but the AI tools can do that. And so our negotiations students are learning how to negotiate better using AI, which is really cool and fun, and it'll make them better.
And I think even as like a clarifying point before I go to you, Angela, like the idea of like the technology focused students or more general business students, like certain people, it's going to resonate where it's like, obviously this is not magic. Somebody built the tool that underwrites that, in like 3 minutes. So like certain people, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, that is incredible. Like, and I'm imagining how we could build something that does X, Y, or Z. And it's like, yeah, like if you're oriented more towards like that idea of coding and building and, creating a product or something, knowing the potential of what you're seeing, the other kind of functional areas in the business world, it's like, have at it. But then otherwise, yeah, it's like you do just need to understand these tools, what they're capable of. And I'm even thinking of like misinformation or fraud and like those sort of like, obviously people are going to be, there'll be bad actors out here that are going to be trying to take advantage of these things. And it's like, yeah, you're going to like know sort of the legal side or, like how to analyze these things and understand like, how all those different aspects works. But I'm curious, Angela, your perspective of like those applications of this on like, the different kind of technology focused or more general business students, how you're seeing this kind of show up. Hey folks, Dustin here. Element 451 is hosting the AI Engage Summit on October 29th and 30th. This free virtual event features many of your favorite Enrollify creators and will explore AI's impact on student engagement, enrollment marketing, and institutional success. Learn how to tap into the power of AI to turn data into actionable insights, utilize predictive analytics, and monitor and support student performance. Plus, hear directly from current students on how AI is influencing their engagement in campus life. The AI Engage Summit is your guide to understanding and applying AI at your school. Registration is free. Just visit element451.com to save your spot. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, so to echo both what Dave and Dustin have mentioned, AI is becoming this great enhancer that we're seeing in the workforce in terms of how it's just changing the way we think about and interact with work. The same way that we saw the internet change all of the jobs back in, the 90s and the 2000s. And so in terms of like that general business student, like we feel it's our responsibility to give these students AI literacy and those foundations that they're going to need. So when they enter the workforce and they're working with processes or systems of their companies, no matter what field, marketing, sales, HR, they feel confident and comfortable to be able to do those activities and do it in a responsible way, right? So as you're kind of talking about like those big thorny questions that like all of us are still wrangling with of like, well, what about the IP perspective of this? Or is this okay? Can we upload all of this document? Is there a privacy concern that we need to think about, right? So there's that like just general technology and AI understanding that we need to instill with all those students. And so when Dave was talking about our big push in AI courses, we've split our courses up into things called AI Sage and AI Artisan courses. And our AI Artisan courses are some of those like lighter, more general business. How are we thinking about AI? How are we applying it into these different spaces that, you know, if you aren't interested in coding things, if you're not interested in how do you actually build a recommendation algorithm for your marketing team to go, you know, wild with, you still need to know like those big principles and how it's being applied in that space. So those are our artisan courses. And then for people like me and, you know, a lot of the students in our analytics program or even in some of our finance programs who might be a little bit more quantitative or might want to get their hands on some code, we have those AI Sage courses that are a little bit more technical in nature. They do some more deep dives into AI specifically and how to craft really good responsible systems. So we're trying to find that balance as this business school of having the avenues and the pathways for those more technical focused STEM initiatives, but also make sure that every single person, regardless of their major, leave with that core foundation.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting and what I'm hearing from you is like kind of taking advantage of this moment and opportunity. Because I think looking back, it's like when the advent of like social media and different things, like I feel like we took maybe too long to really like develop the sort of like digital literacy of like navigating social media and, you know, using it to its best outcomes and everything, and not just looking at it as sort of a boogeyman or something, you know, that folks like yourselves are kind of looking at this as an opportunity versus it being like, again, like a, you know, kind of monster under the bed or whatever. Like those are just objectively like helpful things for any student. But like the fact that you all are being able to kind of model the way for, you know, other business schools, but also just like higher ed in general, I think it's just really appreciate you all embracing all of this and doing this work. But, you know, given that so many people are feeling like the sky is falling, they're maybe still trying to kind of make sense of all this. Like, we'll start with you, Angela. Like, what would your advice be to other higher ed leaders right now when it comes to sort of like integrating AI, I guess, you know, into their curriculum, or just generally like how can they sort of look at it as not so much of a sort of scary thing?
So the first thing that I would recommend is just get your hands on the tool if you've never touched them. Even if you think that's the worst technology in the world, you don't want to do anything with it, just try one prompt. Start with just replacing one simple Google search with something in AI and just start pushing the bounds of like, what is this technology? And I'm talking specifically about like the generative AI. Just start playing around with it and get a little bit more comfortable every day, 5 minutes a day, just to open your eyes. Right. And just see how maybe some of your students are thinking about using this or replicating it. Because the big key here is even if you don't want your students to be using it, like they're using it, you know? So you can't just get left behind and just ignore this big technological shift that we've seen. The second thing that I would say is embrace and involve your community, either that already exists in your campus or in your community. So there's probably professors who are super interested in specific avenues of it, maybe through a sustainability lens, maybe through an ethics perspective, maybe through a finance application, right? So like find the champions within your school that might already exist and start just understanding their perspective, what they want to do, what they want to bring. And as I said before, the biggest thing that really helped us with getting all of our faculty and staff on board was reaching out to the communities, seeing from the business professionals exactly how they're already leveraging AI, because they're going to be so far ahead from all of us because they just move a little bit quicker, and understanding how they're using it, what those applications are, what the big hairy questions are that they're still tackling with will kind of give you some direction and sense of what maybe you all should start looking forward to.
David, advice?
You know, I had a meeting with about 10 deans 10 days ago. There are many other schools are struggling. One of the deans said, you know, our only approach to AI is through punitive measures to discipline students from using AI. It reminds me a little of what I can imagine business schools were like when kind of Excel took off, where or the calculator was created, where faculty would say, don't use a calculator because you're cheating and you're not learning math. So I think I agree with Angela, it's a mindset shift. And to know that the parade is leaving town and you either can watch the parade go by or you can join the parade and help lead it out of town. So I think you could divide faculty up into 3 groups. Faculty that are early adopters and eager to do this, like Angela. We had some faculty that were like, okay, I like this, but I need your help because I don't know how to do this. And so that's why Angela has brought this great training program, and she has a regular Friday AI coffee chat where faculty come and they share problems and solutions. All right, I'm doing this. I had this problem. What's your advice? And then some faculty, would say, I've been teaching the same thing for 30 years. I'm not going to change. So I would say that the latter group is pretty small and we've had pretty good adoption. So my advice is just take the plunge, because if you don't, the parade's leaving town.
Yeah, and I think it is just, sometimes like the naysayers or the critics, like, they're always going to have a little bit of outsized influence, that idea that like people who are skeptical, it's like, sure, like we all kind of maybe are going to be a little bit wary of like the new thing, but that idea of at least like meeting them where they're at. And like, I mean, I guess I know some faculty would be this way of like really digging their feet and be like, I'm never going to change. There's nothing you can never do to make me change. But that idea of like, okay, well, let me like just show you, we're going to do like a simple query into like ChatGPT or something, is like, it is even like, I use it helping with like generating titles for podcast episodes, or like, doing the kind of summaries and descriptions. Cause it's like, I've been doing this for 7 years. It's hard to come up with like a catchy, grabby new title for like the 250th time. So like, it's super helpful for that. Cause like, I'll see it and it's like, oh, actually that's like, I feel like 75% of the way there. Let me like reorder the word and like do it, so like, yeah, like it's super helpful at that. And it's kind of harmless because I could do that and be like, I don't like any of these. I'm going to do something else. I'm just going to make it up on my own. But like, kind of have to get me started. But it's making me think of, and I guess why it's so like kind of splitting people is like, it's making me think of like Wikipedia. Like that was one of these things where it's like, oh, it's outlawed. You can't use Wikipedia. That's, and it's since like, I think that the tune has changed there, but like, this is the idea of somebody saying like, you can't Google in this class. You can't Google anything. The idea of like searching the entire repository of human knowledge or whatever, like the idea of like ChatGPT could sort of like serve in that role. Like you can't just like ban a search engine or something, and it just being kind of hard for people to really grapple with that kind of notion, the idea that it's going to be this like amazing kind of supplement and assistant and tool for people. But I think, yeah, trying to find those kind of organic or natural and kind of iterative ways to kind of introduce AI into the curriculum, like you all are doing, even for kind of general students and, not just the technology focused ones. So,
yeah. It's interesting. I was talking we had an athlete come by the other day who dad is a English teacher in high school. And we were kind of pitching the athlete on why American University would be a great place for this individual to come. And I talked about our AI initiative, and the dad of this athlete, she's a junior in high school, said, oh, we don't allow anybody to use AI for anything. And I said, well, let me just give you an example. I was a very mediocre writer in high school. And obviously, a student should be punished if they just write an essay using ChatGPT. Okay. But let's say that I used it to help me structure an essay or to craft a topic sentence. Would that be okay? Because I wasn't really good at writing an essay. So he said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So like there are parameters to make it useful within bounds for everybody, in my view. And, we have a faculty member that teaches entrepreneurship, and she assigned our students to use AI to come up with ideas for businesses. And she said, I got the most creative ideas I've had since I began teaching. Because a student would come up and say, all right, I want to do an education podcast that has a geekiness and a technology angle and what's out there and how can I be different? And it would come up and say, well, Dustin Ramsdell already does this, so you got to do something different. And he does a good job with his podcast, so you have to do something different. That's great market research and it's useful. And so students are loving it. When we had our kind of, student welcome day, when students came with their parents, usually we gave a presentation on everything we're doing. And usually we get a question on sports and on marketing and internships. The only thing anybody asked about was AI. It was very, very interesting. And so I think, what Angela and our faculty are doing is just great. And it's going to help our students be more competitive in the marketplace. And ultimately, circling back to why am I here? I'm here because it's fun and interesting. And I'm inspired by helping young people that are going to be the next generation. And I feel like there are a lot of AI initiatives at universities all around the world that are very research focused. And there's a lot of merit in that. This is a student focused initiative. It's all about helping our students be better, more competitive when they apply for jobs.
Yeah, just like like you were kind of saying, it's just one of those moments. And I think that we're at least clued into the idea of this is going to be as endemic as electricity or something. This is going to be a pretty fundamental thing, because it's even there is already AI in so many things, even when you're doing typing smart reply in your Gmail or whatever, that's AI. There's all these things where people are oh, I've never used AI. It's do you use this thing on your phone? That's AI or whatever. So the idea that it is so endemic and appreciating what goes into that and understanding how to harness, it's going to help all students be more competitive. So, and I think maybe in that journey that many higher ed leaders out there on kind of shepherding their flock into the AI ways, if either of you have any good resources, your own or others that are good articles or things, perspectives on this topic, books, other podcasts, whatever might come to mind, feel free to kind of just shout them out. We can link to them in the show notes, but anything come to mind from either of you that you might want to share out to folks?
In terms of a tool that I love to bring into the classroom, it's called Perplexity. And as Dustin, you were mentioning how Wikipedia was the big taboo thing earlier on. It's basically a new Wikipedia. And I think it's a great place for everyone to get started with in their AI journey, because one of the big issues with something like ChatGPT is unless you're already an expert in a topic, you can't really fact check the AI, or some things might go unnoticed of it's definitely wrong and you just didn't really see it. With Perplexity, they put little footnotes and they cite all of the sources that they summarize. So if you're not the expert, or if you're starting a new research paper, if you're trying to start understanding a brand new topic that you have no idea about, you can literally click the links of where they try to synthesize the information, and then you can cross-reference and see did they make a mistake? Is this actually real? Is it not? So that's a big one. And then in terms of just learning more from, how to integrate AI into the classroom, Ethan Mollick over at UPenn has been a really, really big thought leader in this area. And he has a blog called One Small Thing, One Simple Thing. I probably messed up that name, so apologies already, but we'll link it in. And that's been really, really good way to just kind of break the ice with some of our faculty, see how other people are thinking about it, and use it as how can we get our students to use AI to critically think deeper versus take all of the thinking out altogether.
And I was going to say Ethan Mollick too. I think he's incredibly creative and doing really interesting work. And he has his students test different tools, and he'll put results of what worked, how accurate it was, how easy it was. He's very prolific on Twitter, and I follow him. I guess the difference between what Ethan Mollick is, one of the most productive and innovative faculty members anywhere in the world. I guess the difference between what we're trying to do in other schools is we're trying to do this from an institutional perspective. Many schools may have one or two faculty members that are great in this area. We're trying to do it in every department, in the core curriculum, in electives, in undergrad and grad, in our career center, and really make it part of our DNA. We're offering badges and certificates for students so that they can put, AIX on their resume when they apply for an internship. And again, a business school should be really focused on improving student outcomes. And we think what we're doing will help students with their outcomes. The other thing that Angela and I've told our faculty is it's okay to fail. If you try something and it doesn't work, just pivot, try something else. And so that experimentation I think is very useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a refreshing perspective, and even just the kind of coalition building that you're talking about, that is not just sort of I think sometimes for one reason or another, it's ego or something where it's just we got our one AI guy who's always out there talking about it to everybody, whatever. But it's just what if they leave? What if they just go work somewhere else? And then you're sort of back to kind of square one, and maybe, just a little bit of kind of knowledge that they've shared with others. But if it really is just part of the culture, people are kind of prototyping and trying things out and, getting out of their comfort zone and all those sort of things, that's how you make sustainable change in any organization, but especially when this idea of something that's going to be, just continually so kind of pervasive in so many aspects of society and business and everything else. You do just need to make sure that you have, you're talking about, the accountants, the kind of managers, the leaders, the, all the folks kind of up to speed, on board, and really just well positioned to kind of keep up versus, sticking your head in the sand and kind of poking your head out some, time down the line. And then you're really starting from kind of a deficit. So we'll definitely link out to Ethan Mollick and the Perplexity tool so folks can check those out. And just really appreciate both of you for hanging out and sharing all that you did and doing the good work that you're doing. And like I said, modeling the way and just really showing, I think, the other side of sort of the boogeyman of AI that's been out there for so long. This is the kind of stuff that I want to help to kind of uplift and shine a light on. So appreciate you both for coming on and talking all about this.
Thanks for having us.
The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.